Alright, hey everybody. So today I want to talk about basil. Now, there are a million ways you can use basil, but what I want to focus on are 3 applications of basil that are really important. Now, the first one is the companion planting aspect. Remember, when you plant basil with, say, the nightshade family of vegetables, tomatoes, eggplant, peppers, those kind of plants, you are helping benefit those plants from the bad pests, the pests that are going to mess up those plants. Because basil has a very strong smell and it helps mask the smell of those plants. So the bugs that are coming to attack those plants can't find them. So the more basil that you plant, the better. Hey everybody, welcome to Down Home Backyard Gardening. Now, if this is your first time checking out this channel, I really hope you enjoy it. And if you do, hit the subscribe button and then hit that little bell so you're always notified whenever I upload videos. Throughout the video, you're gonna see where I'm gonna put up my Facebook and Instagram information for the Down Home Backyard Gardening pages. If that interests you, click the link down below in the description. That'll take you over to those pages and then you can follow. And hey everyone, if you enjoy this video or any of my other videos, do me a favor, share them, like them, and comment. As you can see right here, we have basil growing crazy. And that is right next to tomato plants. Also right here, I have purple basil, again, that I have let go to flower for 2 reasons. 1, to bring in the beneficial insects, the pollinators, and 2, to mask the smell of my single seed challenge plants right here, which are spoon tomato plants. And then if you look inside, that is a volunteer basil plant that I never planted. It seeded itself. And so far, I've had only 2 armyworms the entire year on those 2 tomato plants that are right there. So basil works. Okay, so the first reason again was companion planting, which I've kind of shown so far. The second reason I wanted to talk about basil is the more basil that you plant in your garden, the better your garden is going to be, because you are helping mask those plants from the insects that will attack them. But how would you like to never have to buy basil again? I said that right. There is a way that you can always have basil and never, ever, ever, ever buy it again. Okay, so about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was looking at YouTube, and now normally, I'll be completely honest, I don't watch other YouTubers' videos, not anymore. Not since I've really gotten into this channel and creating my own content. But every now and then, I will see a thumbnail that catches my eye. And this thumbnail for Next Level Gardening, Brian Lowell's channel, caught my eye. So hey Brian, good job. That thumbnail worked. And the thumbnail was all about never having to buy basil again. So I clicked on it because I was like, man, I gotta see this. I watched the video and was blown away. I did not know that you could do this with basil. And I'm wondering and curious if we could do this with other herbs, which I'm gonna try. But since we're talking about basil, this was the premise of the video. What you want to do is you get your basil plant before it gets flowers on it. Once it has flowers, like this basil plant does, and you can see the bees coming in to pollinate it, you don't want to use it at this point. You do not want to use that basil plant for this next part. Okay, so the reason that you don't use the basil on a plant that has already gone to flower is because for green basil, the flowering process makes the leaves of the basil plant bitter. So you're not going to want to keep propagating a bitter basil plant, especially if you're going to use those basil leaves for recipes, you know, things of that nature. So what you want to do is right when you see the plant start to flower, pick those flowers off, and then you're going to cut down about 3 or 4 inches on the plant. And you're going to do this. You're going to put them in a jar of water, and this is 3 weeks old. And look at all those roots in there. That is amazing to me. I have 3 basil plants in that jar that I can go stick in the garden somewhere and start growing. And those are 3 basil plants that I don't have to buy. Now, the trick for this is, from what I did, every 4 days I changed out the water. Drain it, fill it back up with new water. So that is how you can easily make your own basil plants last forever and never have to buy basil again. Now this will work with any of the basils, Thai basil, the green basil, purple basil, it doesn't matter. That's the trick though, is picking it right when it starts, right before it starts to flower, and sticking it in the water. Now the bottom part of the stem, I took the bottom leaves off so the stems were nice and, you know, exposed in the water. And as you can see, again, it works. It works great. Now, what I'm going to do is, over the winter, I'm going to have a bunch of these starts already ready in the windowsill, ready to go for spring, because I'm going to populate my garden next year with basil coming out my ears, because I want to avoid as much pest problem as possible. And I'm going to go pretty heavy again next year on tomatoes. So basil is great at hiding the smell of basil. Basil is great at hiding the smell of tomatoes, not basil. So for the third thing that we're going to discuss about basil, I want to make some basil pesto. And I thought, hey, why not do this, show you all how I do my pesto, and have some fun with it. Now, the biggest thing with this for me is I don't have to go to the store to buy my basil. I get to go right over here in the garden and pick my basil. Now for this recipe, I need about 2 pounds of basil, which is a lot of basil leaves. I'm not sure if I have enough basil that hasn't gone to flower, but we're gonna give it a shot. Okay, so I think we're done. I think I have enough basil in here. Now, because it is so hot out here and I am sweating like crazy, let's go make some pesto. Okay, so now we're back inside and we're going to make the pesto. Now the first thing you want to do is wash the basil. All right, now that the basil is washed, I have to say the smell is insane. Like, that smells so good, so strong, and you can totally tell and understand why pests can't smell the tomatoes or the peppers if this is planted next to them, because that smell is very, very, very strong. Next thing you're going to do is get out your food processor, your blender, whatever you're going to use to blend up the basil and all the ingredients. Now I'm going to put the recipe right here. This is a really simple recipe and this does not take long to make. Now again, you can use pesto on everything. Anything that you think would taste good, put pesto on it. And if you're making fresh pesto from your garden, I mean, seriously, what's better than that? Okay, so as you can see, we've got the basil, the extra virgin olive oil, pepper, salt, walnuts. Now I went ahead and went with walnuts instead of the pine nuts. You could use either one, just totally depends on what you want to use. Parmesan cheese and the garlic. So we're ready to go. The first thing we do is we put in the basil. And again, this thing calls for 2 pounds. Not sure I'm going to get 2 pounds of this in this food processor, but we're going to give it a shot. Once you have the basil in, we're going to go ahead and add in your pine nuts or your walnuts. And again, half a cup. Put the lid back on, and then you're going to pulse a few times just to get it all broken down. Just like that. Okay, remember, this is a recipe, and a very easy recipe at that you can totally do with your kids, your grandkids. Get them excited to help you make something that they're going to enjoy. Or better yet, have them go pick the basil or, you know, whatever, and get them in the garden having fun with you and in the kitchen. Okay, now that this is blended up, we're going to add the cheese, about half a cup of the Parmesan cheese. Now this is a 1 cup, but it's about half, as you can see. Add that in. And then you want to do the garlic. It calls for a tablespoon, but I kind of like garlic, so I'm just going to eyeball it myself. All right, once you have that in, we're going to blend it up again. Now, one thing I did forget to do is you want to scrape the sides down. All right, once it looks like that, we're going to blend it just a little bit more, and then we will jump to the next step. Okay, good enough. All right, if your food processor has a hole or a spot in the lid that you can pour in the olive oil, this is the olive oil time. Now, we're going to pour this in slowly as we're blending everything up. So as you start to pour in the olive oil, now I probably added too much olive oil for this little bit, which I didn't realize until the end, but it's all right. It's still going to taste good. All right, this is the stage where we add in our pepper and our salt. Now it calls for 1/8 of a teaspoon, but I'm just going to slap in what I want to slap in. And I like to use the pink salt, the Himalayan salt, but you all use whatever you want. And then of course, salt to taste. Now I'm going to blend this up one last time. Get that pepper and that salt mixed in. All right, everyone, there it is. Fresh pesto. Took about 7 minutes total. So let's try it. Now again, you can put pesto on anything. Let's give this a taste. I'm excited. That is really, really good. It's a very strong basil flavor. Probably could have put a little bit more cheese, definitely more salt. It needs more salt for sure. But that is super easy and very, very, very good. Even with the extra olive oil that I put in it, that is really, really good. So, you know, that's what I wanted to show in this video. Not only the garden aspect of how awesome this basil plant is and the different ways that you can utilize this plant from companion planting. Now again, with companion planting, if you just want to let it, just plant it and just let it go to flower, then do that. Hey, you are not losing anything by doing that. But if you do want to use some of the basil for something like pesto or eggplant parmesan or something to that effect where you need basil in it, then remember, keep 1 or 2 of your green plants, your green basil plants, from going to flower. And the way you do that is as soon as you start to see anything that looks remotely like a flower, pick it off. That will keep the plant in the non-flowering stage to where the leaves don't get bitter. All right, everybody, so that is the video. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you were able to learn something, maybe get inspired to go outside and do something different with a plant that, for me, I normally only use basil as a companion plant. I rarely use the basil plant for like cooking. But I wanted to make this because 1, I've had it recently and I really liked it and thought, hey, why not try to make it? 2, I have all the leaves and all the plants out there, so again, why not try to make it? And 3, I wanted to share it with you all, and especially the trick that Brian Lowell over on Next Level Gardening put out about 3 weeks ago on how you can always have basil and never pay for it again. I mean, hey, I'm all about saving money. All right, everyone, if you enjoyed this video, like I said at the very beginning, share and like the video, comment down below if you've ever used basil in other ways, or if you have a different recipe for pesto. And hey, everybody, as always, shine bright and harvest hard. Bye. Here. And I've got sugar ants out the butt. Does anyone else have a cat that drinks their water like that?